In this video, I'm going to show you how you can generate better ideas using AI agents like OpenClaw in combination with knowledge graphs. In fact, the approach is based on analyzing your Obsidian nodes. So like me, you probably have a lot of nodes where you write down your ideas, and then using OpenClaw chat interface in combination with the InfraNodus MCP server to understand what are the main topics in your discourse. So exactly what we're seeing right now on the screen here, the main ideas, all the different clusters that you're thinking about, and then finding what are the gaps between those ideas that you could bridge with some new insights. And then you can ask OpenClaw to analyze your existing research papers folder, so external information, in order to see what possible papers could be interesting for you to enhance your own knowledge of the subject and to advance your research further. And I think this workflow is super interesting, whether you're a researcher or a thinker, or you just like to imagine different things, because you're basically combining your own knowledge base, like I have here in Obsidian, all the information I have and this big graph of concepts I'm thinking about, to some external knowledge, understanding what are the gaps in my thinking, what I need to bridge, and then using my research papers that I have here, a lot of them actually, to then find what ideas I can use to bridge those ideas. So I think as someone who's interested in information and knowledge, you will also find that super useful in your workflow, because you can apply it to almost anything. And I'm going to use OpenClaw for this demonstration, but you can use the same approach with any AI agent. For example, you can use Claude Code, or you can even do it inside Claude Desktop or ChatGPT using the InfraNodus MCP server. And a little bit about myself, I'm Dimitri, I'm the developer of this app, InfraNodus, visual text analysis tool that uses network science to generate insights. I've been working on this for the last 15 years, and I just like to share interesting workflows I find, so I hope that you will find it super useful. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Also, I answer each one of them. All right, so let me first show you how the workflow works, and then I will demonstrate how you can set it up. I will be using OpenClaw as an example. I have another video I will link to where I explain how to set it up securely, because it's very important to do first, so it doesn't steal all your data. But basically, once you have it set up, you can start a new chat inside your browser. You can also chat with it using Telegram, but I'm going to use browser for this demonstration. And then the great thing about OpenClaw is that it has access to all your data, and also you can connect any tool to it. That's also one of the main problems it has, because if you don't protect your data, then it can leak your passwords and crypto wallets. But here I just gave it access using special configuration that I have in another video here, where I tell it, okay, just have access only to the folders with my Obsidian vault. Okay, so this is one folder, it's the Obsidian vault of my ideas. And then another folder, it has access to other research papers I have. And now I'm going to ask OpenClaw to tell me what I'm thinking about in relation to a certain topic I want to explore. In this case, it's going to be heart rate variability, or HRV. So I'm just going to ask OpenClaw, tell me what are the main ideas I'm thinking about in relation to HRV from the Obsidian vault. Okay, so I tell it what to look for and where to look for it. And as you can see what happens here, it asks me for a permission to run a command, and this is the setup that I recommended. It asks you everything it's going to do, and it basically will run a terminal command that will tell me, okay, so find what MD files that also have Obsidian path exist in my workspace folder, the one I have access to. I allow it, and then it tells it, okay, what is the depth? So it runs a few commands, and then once I give it permission, it also asks me again for another permission, but that's good. It might be annoying, but that's good, because you make sure that it's not going to leak any of the other stuff you have, okay? And then it takes some time. And what OpenClaw is doing, using the Claude model in the background that I'm using, I think I'm using Opus 4.6, is that it basically searches through all my Obsidian folder and then finds which of those files mention HRV, or heart rate variability, in them. And of course, I could do this manually or using our nice InfraNodus extension here, but it's also kind of cool to be able to do this through the chat interface like this, because then you can really get some really interesting insights without having to analyze all this information manually. So let's see what OpenClaw produces. All right, so here it says, okay, I located the vault, and then here are some of the main ideas you have. So you're talking about all these different topics, right? It lists them. And then this is the point where AI starts to lack capabilities, because if you try to ask it to generate ideas, it works in the way that it will propose the most probable one, and we want the most interesting one. So this is where the InfraNodus server comes in, because basically what InfraNodus does is that it represents information as a graph of concepts, right? So here I'm showing an example of an already finished research that I did with OpenClaw, and then it aligns them into clusters of topics. So I get this high-level overview of the main ideas that I'm thinking about. And then this allows me to have entrance points into my discourse, as well as a general high-level understanding of what I'm thinking about. And already this information provides me, and then also the LLM, when it's using InfraNodus, with an idea of the main topics and also what I'm missing. And what you're missing is actually more interesting, because you probably know you're thinking about all these topics, but the smaller ones are the ones you should focus on if you want to develop your discourse, right? So it's the underrepresented topics with less influence that are actually the most interesting and important for you to be different from the others, right? So this is what InfraNodus is really programmed to do. And when you use it inside an AI agent like OpenClaw, or Claude Code, it will basically provide it with this information, and it will make your agent steer its thinking towards this smaller, less represented topical clusters and try to connect them in new ways. And then another feature of InfraNodus is that it always shows the content gaps. So what are the connections you're missing? And then it tries to propose you ideas that would help you think in this direction. So the next thing that you can do to apply this workflow inside your OpenClaw, I'm just going to leave it here on the right, then I will show you how it works in OpenClaw. So now it just gives me this kind of AI generated insight of the main ideas that I'm thinking about. Okay, and then I can tell it, okay, use InfraNodus to tell me what are the main topical clusters of ideas I have on the topic of HRV. So let's see now what happens when it tries to use InfraNodus in order to make it happen. And to connect InfraNodus to your OpenClaw or AI agent, you can install the special tool that we have and the skill. So it's a tool and a skill that I will link to also in the description to this video. It's basically one-click installation, and then it calls a special tool, MC Porter, that allows MC Porter to call different tools, right? And so here it's telling me that it's going to run list graphs from InfraNodus. So it actually misunderstood me. It's very good that it happens, and this is very good that it's asking me for a permission, because I'm going to say deny. I also say deny here, because here it's trying to call the InfraNodus search tool, because I don't want it to search inside InfraNodus. I want it to extract all the data from Obsidian and then feed it into InfraNodus. So maybe I didn't make my prompt good enough. So I'm going to deny this, and I'm going to say, okay, use InfraNodus to tell me what are the main topical clusters of ideas I have on the topic of HRV in my Obsidian Vault, what you retrieve about. So let us wait for the execution of the tool, because here something went a bit wrong. All right, so here is the generated response that we have, the main topical clusters, based on all these different files that it extracted. So it's basically an analogy of what you would see here if you go inside InfraNodus and then you reset the view. So it's basically an analogy of what you would see here, where you see the main ideas represented on the graph, the main topical clusters this way, but now in a text form that lists their relative influence and importance, right? So I can see that these are the topics I'm thinking about. When I'm talking about HRV, that's from my Obsidian notes, okay? So this is kind of like my research in progress. Then it shows me the content gaps. So this is the most interesting part. What are some underdeveloped connections that I could focus on? For instance, here I see that there is a gap between body sensitivity and PTSD, arousal regulation. Maybe HRV can kind of fix that. Then also body sensitivity HRV measurement. So can we also use HRV to understand how sensitive the body is? Stress response and body sensitivity. These are all very interesting ideas, because I know the subject and it's making me think in new connections. It's making me pave new relations between my different clusters of disconnected knowledge. Exactly what's happening here, you know, when we have this content gap and then we reiterate through these gaps in order to see how we could connect these ideas differently in a new way. So that's exactly what's happening here, you know, it kind of focuses on these gaps and proposes me to link them together. So it's very nice, and already just reading this can generate some really interesting insights for me. But the advantage here is that I can feed these insights back into OpenClaw, because for instance here you see it tells me, okay, so these are the stuff I found, these are the gaps, So then I can say, okay, now can you focus on one of these gaps and find the research papers in the research papers folder that could help me towards developing these ideas. Okay, so now I'm telling it, okay, you found the gaps in my own thinking, in my own Obsidian vault that I have here, right? And then now I want you to look into these different files I have. So here you see it's searching the Dropbox folder with all the papers. And then I want you to find the PDF documents that could basically be helpful for me to bridge these gaps and ideas. So it's really a great approach, because what you're doing is to basically find some notes that you have, all the disconnected notes on a certain topic, find what you should connect better, like what's not yet connected, and then finding the specific information that exists already in the outside world that could help you bridge these connections. And here it's telling me, okay, I'm working and waiting, because it's basically in the background, it's processing a lot of PDF documents. So this is where you can go and have a cup of tea or smoke a cigarette or something else if you're into smoking other stuff. But basically, after a while, OpenClaw is going to come back with the results of research. I'm going to have some tea right now. What's really cool though, in the meanwhile, as I'm waiting, I can ask OpenClaw to save some of these ideas into my existing HRV graph in InfraNodus, because as you can see here, I have this HRV Obsidian notes, and I'm using it as a memory graph to save ideas. So I actually really like these insights, and I don't want to lose them. And sometimes OpenClaw just loses the conversations you have. So I'm gonna say, okay, while we wait on the results, please save these insights about the content gaps into our InfraNodus HRV graph, HRV Obsidian graph. Okay, and look what happens here. Sometimes OpenClaw is a bit buggy, so you're gonna be seeing a lot of really weird stuff with some like error calls and stuff like that, but usually it's going to fix itself. So it's just that you have to be patient sometimes and wait a little bit until it gives you the result. All right, so as you can see, it saved the graph into Obsidian fractals graph. So it actually found another graph where I was thinking about fractals, and now it gives me a link to this graph. So when I open it, I will have all these different insights added here, which is really great, because basically when I click on the content and I scroll down, I will see all these insights about the gaps. And of course here, the content gaps. And of course, if I wanted it to save it in this specific graph, I could just tell it the name of this graph and it will be saved there. But I actually like that it finds on its own the most suitable graph. There's an element of unpredictability here, but it also makes it much more creative. And while it was doing that, it also gave me a response here that it cannot access the actual research papers folder because of these restrictive permissions that I gave it in order for it not to be able to access anything on my hard drive. So in fact, sometimes it's going to happen, and it's good it happens here in the demonstration. It makes it a bit longer, not good for attention, but it's really good if you're really following it, because what you can say, and regarding finding the research papers, they are actually in your workspace folder. Research papers, it's called. Check and perform the action I asked earlier. So sometimes you have to nudge it a little bit to do the right thing. And it's a huge problem actually with OpenClaw, that because of its permissive structure, each time you have to like do something, if you really protect it, it's going to break. But then, you know, the advantage is that you don't have all your data stolen, you don't expose everything you have to the internet. So it's a bit of an inconvenience, but it works because, you know, you are safe, and it takes slightly more time, but you get really good results in the end. So let's see what we have here. All right, so here we have the results. It found the papers that could be helpful to me and created a little table of how I could use them. All right, so this is really great because it identified the gap using InfraNodus here, and then it understood what I should focus on, and then it found the exact papers that I could use to help me fill in these gaps and generate novel ideas. So I find it really amazing because instead of just looking through all the papers I have in my folder manually, here it provides me some really interesting references I can use. So for example, let me just see if I find something that is really interesting to me. Here I have a paper on HRV and stress, for example, and it's exactly that link of how HRV can be used as a measure of understanding how sensitive the body is, and if it's stressed, maybe it's not responding to external impulses or it's not as adaptive. So this is a really great one. Also, this other paper of some researchers mapping emotions to the body, where body sensitivity is felt, really great for this gap also. So as you can see, there's a lot of really relevant stuff, and then if I like, I can ask it to extract some of the documents and add them into my InfraNodus graph. And what I find also interesting is that it found my own paper that I wrote about 13 years ago, where I'm actually talking about all these ideas, and it tells me, okay, you already have the ingredients, so you can kind of like rework this paper and add this measure into it, and then you have the scientific base in order to make the argument that you were making back in the day. So it's really great. And here it's telling me, want me to extract text from the most critical papers and feed them into the Obsidian fractals graph for deeper analysis. I can say, okay, extract ideas from, and let's actually choose these two papers. So this is why I don't give it full autonomy, because I don't want it to do everything. I just wanted to use these two papers here, okay, from these two papers, and feed them into a new graph and save them in InfraNodus. So then it's going to just analyze those two PDFs using the skill or the tool that it has access to read these PDFs. Then it's going to save it into a new graph, and it's going to give me a link to this graph. So as you can see here, it's going to that folder, and then it's running this PDF parse on these two documents, and then it extracts the text, and then it's going to hopefully work out and save it into the graph, and then I will have these insights saved in my InfraNodus, and then I can use the visual interface to explore them in more detail and interact with the built-in AI module here that we have in order to generate interesting insights and ideas. So it's kind of really helpful to actually combine both, because if you want, you can use the chat in your AI agent. If you want, you can use the visual interface and explore these ideas in a more granular visual way and kind of see how you can connect them in a more interesting way, how you can also explore them and stuff like that. So I find this combination of workflows very interesting. All right, so here we have the results produced. You see it's saved a new graph, DFA HRV EDA research, with all these research papers that can be pertinent to my studies. It extracted the main topics from them also, so I understand that they're all talking about fractal dynamics, emotional processing, aerobic threshold, nervous system, you see, so all the topics that relate to HRV, but that go a little bit more into the specifics of how it works and the actual metrics we can use. And then it provides me a link to this graph, which I can open, and then I can explore it here. So these are all the important extracts from these papers, which is really great, that summarize kind of like the main ideas that I should be focusing on, and then I can use InfraNodus itself and the graph itself to kind of generate ideas. So for example, I can say, okay, the AI module here, I can ask it, how can I develop this discourse? And then it's going to use the underlying graph structure in order to give me specific ideas on how I can continue thinking in this direction and bridging my gaps. So I find this workflow really fascinating. It works really well, even though sometimes it's a little bit slow. How Macron said, it is slow, but for sure, for sure it's slow, but it's very, very useful. So I really recommend you to try it out. And you will sometimes face some obstacles, but it's really worth to go through them, because you get really nice insights, and also you kind of get a peek into how all this is going to work in the future. And if we are the first ones to explore these workflows and understand how they work and how we can apply them, I think we can also shape the way that these tools and instruments develop and generate some interesting insights along the way. So thank you for your attention, and let me know what you think about this workflow, and if you tried it on your own Obsidian, on your own notes, on your own research papers, and what you think about it in general. Just leave a comment below. Thank you.